hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and I'm also surrounded by the best and brightest in the RPG community. So, hello, everyone. Welcome to the channel. If you are new to the channel, this channel goes live Monday through Friday, and this is also a long-form content show. So, not only do we go live Monday through Friday for an hour of unscripted, open, live, interactive content, but we also take a subject and we talk about it all week long. And of course, today being Thursday, this is Third Pillar Thursday, third pillar of Exploration Thursday, one of my favorite. And of course, this falls in line with my brainchild over on Drive Through RPG, known as the Cinematic Environs. And Alex and Rob, part of Critical Hit Publishing, has helped me bring that to life. A new release has just been released. Probably 2 more books before we do our compendium and all that kind of business. But the point of me bringing all of that up is because this is my jam. Thursdays are my jam, where we get to talk about the third pillar of exploration. Of course, the first and second pillars being combat and social interaction, respectively. Lloyd, the Jarl DMs in here. Good morning. Well, morning on my end of my side of the pond. Yep. No problem. It seems like the show is becoming people's daily ritual. I don't know if it's my dulcet tones. Maybe 5 out of 4 doctors say that if you have too much iron in your diet, loosens up the bowels there, get you to pinch a loaf, get the Hershey squirts going. It hasn't really been proven by the FDA, but I think I help out a little bit. Andreas, what's going on there? Good to see all of you. And of course, our 2 moderators are here as well, Deadman and Tesla. Thank you very much. So, hey, you and me Sunday, dude. You and me Sunday. We will talk. All right. So anyway, today we are talking about the Undead and Necromancers, and how the hell does that work with like the third pillar? Okay, so the third pillar of exploration in role-playing games is this idea of, well, exploration. And of course, mostly we think about exploration as going into uncharted territories, going out into the wilderness, exploring those areas, even finding old crypts and dungeons and exploring them as well. And that absolutely positively has everything to do with it. Whether you want to run some kind of like survival hex crawl, hacking through jungles or traveling across an accursed desert or into the, tundra, frozen tundra or something like that, whatever the case may be, going on a sailing ship and sailing through an archipelago of islands or whatever, that's exploration as well. But like Jarl DM says, exploring a necropolis has untold dangers. Too much noise, stepping on the wrong thing, anything could wake the restless dead. And that's where exploration to me doesn't just end there, although for the most part, most role-playing games, they tend to stop at that point. But I contend that exploration has a lot to do with narrowing the focus down. So it's not just about survival and camping out. It does have to do with exploring an unknown location, an old crypt or cemetery, or sneaking through an undead strewn battleground, and you don't want to awaken the dead. But also, there are rewards for exploration, or rather, I'll say, I think there should be rewards for exploration. Great rewards for exploration, as the Jarl DM brings up, is this idea that maybe you find something out that helps you explore that region. So, for example, finding the back door or the sewer system that allows you to sneak into a city, or finding out that maybe, just maybe, you should be quiet when you sneak through the through the old crypt before you awaken the dead, or maybe you find a ridge or that you can go above and sneak around an enemy encampment or whatnot. So I think bits and pieces of the environment could help you out. And I don't mean just narratively, but even mechanically. Someone finds loose stone at the top of a valley, and if you disrupt the loose stone, there'll be an avalanche or a rock slide or something. I think those things, even in an urban environment, how many times have we seen protagonists in various stories go into a warehouse and find explosives or barrels of acid, or heck, even break open a carton and find some weapons inside of it, or something like that, or um, your your typical investigative story where you find clues is literally exploration. Hey, we found footsteps, we found blood splatter, we uncovered a note that was half burned in a fireplace, and it's part of our clue. That kind of thing. And mind you, a lot of times we don't really consider that to be exploration in the explorative sense, but absolutely, I think that does work. In last week we talked about war, and in a war setting, finding a better way to get your troops from point A to point B through a clearing that wasn't on a map, or finding food supplies, or shelter from harsh weather or something, I think really counts for exploration. But we'll dig even deeper. Let me go into the some of the interactions here. Gaster Tusel says, I'm making the Council of Beating Blood banner. Oh, you from yesterday. Oh, sweet. No problem. Take your time. If you are if your brain is fueled up, don't don't hesitate with that. Okay, so the other the other part of exploration, if we start to narrow this down a little bit, is discovering the mechanical parts of the world, and then using and abusing those mechanical parts in the world. So what I mean by that is, like, all in fifth edition we have layers and traps. We've seen this plenty of times in all of your social medias, where people talk about puzzles and riddles, um, obstacles, hazards, all those things combined together to me make the the environment. So what does this have to do with the undead and necromancers? Well, I contend to you that it can get a little bit boring if all you're going to do is just fight um, low level skeletons and zombies, maybe throw in a couple of ghosts and wraiths or something, and then you're just going to fight like liches and vampires. Like, you're going to have to figure out a way to make it a little bit more entertaining, which is why, like, for example, the television show The Walking Dead has lost a lot of viewers. And it comes in two levels. One is, you can really easily start to run out of ideas when it's just a bunch of, like, shambling undead walking across the countryside, especially when your heroes have learned to deal with it. And then the other part is all the all the character interactions. If no one's moving anywhere, that becomes a little bit it starts to lose its flavor too, right? It's like chewing on cardboard. There's no flavor, there's no point. So how do we change that? Well, I think changing the locations of the environment where you have interactions with the undead, I think really helps. So let's take, for example, let's start with the Jarl DM's idea of, like, exploring a necropolis, where if you make too much noise or step on the wrong thing, anything could wake the restless dead. I think that makes an excellent environment, because what happens now is, sure, in most role-playing games, your PCs generally become badasses unless you're playing something like Call of Cthulhu or whatever. But maybe it's not a good thing for the player characters to, you know, stomp and trudge through a necropolis, right? Maybe they know, by exploring the region or having explored a library or talk to other individuals on the road during their explorations that they realize that this necropolis has dozens, hundreds, thousands of undead of possible dead, and if they make noise, they're going to awaken one or more. We've seen this plenty of times in your zombie apocalypse movies, right? Where the the main characters are like trying to be stealthy because they know that one undead that starts to screech with a undead voice means that all it's going to summon up all the other ones, right? So yeah, you don't want that to happen. So yeah, being stealthy counts for exploration. Sure, the barbarian or the paladin or whatnot can like wade through the undead, but if the undead keep escalating, that's destructive. And that's one thing that the environment can really um, it's a thread that we can pull on for the environment, and that is escalation. You guys know me, I have different types of terminology when it comes to using the environment, and that's one thing is escalation. Sure, you're fighting two zombies and now it's 7, now it's 15, now it's 38, now it's 85, now it's 156. And at a certain point it gets to a level where maybe that mindless undead is not really, it's not like fighting one undead at a time. Maybe it gets to the point where it becomes, the undead become where the undead become an environmental effect unto themselves. We've seen this plenty of times um, in our various intellectual properties. Get enough undead on a rooftop and it'll collapse. Get enough undead pushing against a fence and it'll bust open. And get enough undead to surround PCs and they can be overrun and knocked down. Gaster was like, I finished it, DBJ. So, well, congratulations on that, dude. I hope the Council of Beating Blood Banners. Kind of cool. All right, so well, what else can we pull from? Oh, by the way, for Tuesday, I talked about the Train to Busan. That happened on the train in the movie The Train to Busan, where the main characters are trying to hide from the undead on the train and sneak past them. And every time the train would go, yes, spoiler alert, every time the train would go through a tunnel, it would get dark and the undead would go into like a passive state. And, zombies go into a passive state and they had to try to sneak past them in the passive manner. Walking Dead has done this plenty of times. Noise was a big factor, as well as like hiding your body, ripping open a dead body and covering yourself in internal organs and blood would help you out with that too. So maybe the player characters discover that through their exploration, but also changing the dynamic of the world itself, right? Like using height, using space, using confined locations, all that kind of stuff, I think really helps ramp up the tension. And that's really what you want. Okay, no problem, Caster. I think I got you stirred up there, Caster Two Soul. I'm glad I did that. Um, um, Andrus Martin says instead of noise, you can use another thing. I once made a dungeon with a ghost Bodak attracted to breath and vitality. The more hit points a PC got, the more aggressive she was. Ooh, ooh. Hey, I'm liking that. Because normally when a PC goes down, like you drop into 0 hit points, it's like somebody's got to stabilize them. They could get dragged away. What if it was the opposite, where yeah, the less hit points you have, the person with the greatest hit points becomes like the beacon, like a big old heat sink of vitality and stuff. I like that. And you know what? I get that some players may balk at the idea of the game master focusing on one player as a victim. But here we go with exploration, right? If they find out, if you foreshadowed or the players investigated the world and found out that there were these monsters or undead that are like it's almost like they can smell your life in a world of like death and darkness, and they'll come for you. Makes perfect sense for the PC with the 80 hit points left, and the other PCs have got like 15 or less because they've gotten their ass kicked. That they go after the one with the most life in them, right? Makes perfect sense. And a lot of natural animals, pile on the rabbit as well. So heck yeah. Um, Gaster Gaster Two Soul says dark storms. You know, dark, almost almost sandstorm-esque waves of purple mists that could bring shadows to life while in the storm. When the storm disperses, the darkness and shadows turn passive. You know, you now here's another thing too, where we can use the natural environment and then like turn it on its head for like uh, a a gothic twist to it. So Gaster brings up like a dark storm where there's maybe like dark necrotic energy or is energizing these storms. So here's a perfect example. Let's throw some fog in there, right? Fog doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you're being attacked by a crowd of things and you can't see through the fog, you don't know how many enemies are around you. Maybe all you hear are like the sounds of the moaning dead, like zombies, and three zombies come out of the fog, and the archer's like, all right, I snipe them, boom, 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 boom. All right, you take out three, and then five more come out of the fog, and what is it? 15 more. Another 37 surround you, and one PC's like, well, I've got dark vision. How many zombies are there? You're like, you can't see through fog with dark vision. Those are particulates. It doesn't allow you to do that. And no, you don't know how many there are out there. Um, and then, of course, fog covers all. Fog prevents you from seeing far away. Fog might prevent you, especially if you're like running at full speed, depending on how thick it is. Uh, it might prevent you from having a great sense of navigation. I always bring up this fact where PCs are in fog, they start to split up. Lots of spell effects require you to see your target, for whether it's your allies or the enemies. Can't see your target, sorry. You can hear them out there getting their asses kicked, but you don't know where they are. Lots of slips, trips, and falls if you're if you're very dangerous for OSHA requirements, right? Or the prototypical running from the undead, someone trips and falls and breaks an ankle. You got to have the running in heels and trope, but you get my point, right? That's the thing. Gaster says perhaps the magical world is affecting our own weather and thus the creation of the dark storms. Yep, absolutely. So oh that's cool, dude. The Council of Beating Blood banner. He put it in an image. That's awesome, dude. Thank you there, Gaster. I really appreciate that. That's awesome though. And that's what the show is all about, man. Just getting rid of the cobwebs and mental fuel. Absolutely. So, feeding off of like the PCs needing to hide themselves or being a beacon. I love the idea of making noise. The idea of like vitality, their literal body heat or the very life essence they have could draw undead towards them. It's possible that hell, even faith could be a thing. A player, one or more of the player characters could have like a symbol of faith on them, and not only could that drive away the undead, it also could be a beacon as well. They might need to hide in that manner, and then of course, if they're doing these things, maybe just maybe there are other ways to draw the undead away from themselves. So, you know, getting a container and filling it with small pebbles and then throwing it off to the left, lobbing it overhead behind cover and making a lot of noise, maybe the undead will go the other direction. Or something a little more terrible, you know having a goat on a rope and sending the goat out into the wild, or tying it to a tree and running the other direction is also a possibility. Or, what's the concept? You don't need to be the fastest. I just need to be faster than you. You get that one NPC that just can't keep up, and oh great, they're an a-hole, even better. Maybe they become maybe they get devoured by the undead while the rest of them are running after you, and it just makes them pause for just a little bit longer so you can find a place to go. But the environment has a lot to do with things, whether it's like heights, barriers, and things. How many times have we seen the danger of undead arms reaching for the PCs? You guys know I've brought this up plenty of times. PCs go down into the dungeon, a literal dungeon with like locked cage doors, or they're in a sewer system with rusted iron bars, and what's behind there? A whole gaggle of undead reaching for the PCs. So now, if they're in a narrow hallway, or rather, the hallway's wide, but the arms reaching through the bars mean that there's a narrow passage, and maybe the PCs end up confronting an enemy while they're down in a dungeon. So what happens? It might be a great idea for the enemy, I don't know, lizard folk to use their javelins and spears to poke the PCs against the wall, to be then grappled by undead to start reaching and trying to rend their flesh. Was that a good technique? Sure. And maybe, just maybe, the PCs being there might cause the undead, who were basically listless, to start trying to break up against those iron bars, and thereby creating a danger of the iron bars, the rusted bars shattering and allowing them to escape, or a PC finds a key that they can use to open up the bars, and maybe they open up the bars to opening up a door, standing behind the door, the undead come out the door and they go the opposite direction to go after maybe their enemy or something. So all without the environment, it's basically just green screening. It's just flat plains, and oh, here's our 37th combat with some undead. Here, let's roll to hit. All right, there's 37 of them. You roll and you take out 3. Let's roll again. Yeah, that works a couple times, but I think we can do better than that. Gaster says, trees turn from luscious green, becoming old, twisted, and not a single leaf to show itself upon a tree. Goes on to say, flowers have yet to grow, unless it's a magical origin, or it's in a lit, I guess you're thinking like a light district, like a place where there's sunlight and whatnot, allowing photosynthesis to happen. Yep. Since the sun has been blocked from certain areas, causing the grass turn from green and lively to purple, rotting the dead. Now, here's another thing too. You could have, for example, let's start to. You guys know I love reskinning. Okay, so instead of fog being a distraction, being a visual barrier, maybe there's a dark winds where there's nothing but the tatters of people's spirits and souls, just moaning and screaming and writhing in pain, floating throughout the region. They're not ghosts. There's just so many. It's the classic sheeted ghosts flowing in and around a region. Maybe it's distracting. Maybe it prevents opportunity attacks. Maybe it costs the PCs a bonus action because they have to ignore it. Maybe there are saving throws, or you become stunned or restrained or blinded because of the narrative effect of having the ghost swirl in and around someone. Maybe the PCs are beseeched by the spirits of the people that they've killed, and there's massive guilt, and they might suffer sanity loss or something like that. So you could do a ton of ideas with that. Your LDM says, one of the scary things about the undead is that they have no sense of self-preservation. They will walk through fire, stand all over each other, pour into a pit until it's full enough for them to cross. Yeah, players may think they're safe behind a barrier. Not so. Oh, hell yeah. And here's the thing too, where for me, the environment is it's like a dance. It's like watching a sporting event where you have the ebb and flow. And so when a PC stands on the other side of a pit and the undead just stumble into the pit, what happens is it removes it changes the dynamic of effectiveness. So I've brought up before that yes, one player character might be able to do more damage than any other player character in the party. And so how we measure that is, well, one character, that barbarian that does, or the paladin that does the smite, is more, he's more powerful than my PC because he can do more damage. And the answer is sure if all you're doing is measuring effectiveness by hit point damage, right? But if the bard says, you know what, yeah, you can one shot a zombie, but if I stand on the other side of the pit and all the zombies are falling into the pit, then that makes the bard using the environment more effective than the other PCs. Now, Jarl DM brings up a point, right? At some point, that pit's going to get so full of undead that they're just going to be able to walk across it by stepping on their fellow other undead. Which, again, ebb and flow, right? Yeah, I'm using the environment; it's very effective. Oh, wait a minute, this isn't, you know. Hey, we're behind a castle wall. There's no way they can get over the castle wall until they start climbing on top of each other and making a human hill of undead that's able to eventually climb up. And of course, what do? We foreshadow these events. We it's escalation. It's all that stuff. So I love it. Gaster says Death had tried to give the goddess of life a special goblet to show his love to her. Where are you going with this? She loved it, however, she had accidentally lost it, and it was found by the humans. The cup's ability is to rejuvenate those who drink from it, but the human soul corrupted the goblet so much that it no longer extended the life of mortals, but corrupted them and created the disease of vampirism. I like that idea. I'm glad that you were spawned by that. A little squirreling away from what we're talking about right at this moment, but copy and paste that, dude. I love it. Yeah, and a goblet that turns people into like vampires or even other types of undead. Hell yeah. And guess what? PCs might be able to find out where that goblet is, or what's been creating the undead, or maybe it can be, if it's destroyed, it could be used as a method to go after their enemies, which you would never find out unless you explore, right? Your LDM says when you're playing a long journey or some survival mission, a ranger is worth 10 times any fighter. Exploration allows classes that aren't as optimized in combat to shine. And again, first of all, I cannot agree with that more. And it's passing the spotlight, right? Synergy is what really works at a gaming table. And sometimes, maybe that barbarian in a group that's been like bashing heads, maybe it's not their time to shine. Oh, pass the spotlight, maybe it's just not their. If you as a player are unable to step back and go, you know what, my player character right now in this particular instance is not the most effective, but maybe I can support some other player, like, I don't know, the bard who's a classic bard making a song or playing an instrument that draws the undead that are falling over the cliffside, right? Maybe it's better for you to do that than it is to bitch and moan about nerfing your character because the game master inserted some kind of environmental effect that makes you less effective, Yeah, like DM Keith says, Game of Thrones, the battle at Winterfell had the zombies overfill the trenches, which allowed others to climb over their bodies. Hell yeah. And well, first of all, the only reason something like that even happens is A, you have to have a trench in the first place, right? And then B, to role play the effect of the undead going into the trench anyway, to then walk over their dead bodies. So without that, you don't get that tension, right? Gasser's like, yeah, I know, but I had this on my mind for a long while. I just had to let it out. Dude, you're perfectly all right, man. Listen, I've got a weekly show. What the hell do you think I do all the time, man? So you are absolutely forgiven. You are embraced there, sir. In the dirty way. So, but here's some other things too. when it comes to like using the undead and whatnot. They could be, like I said, they could be trapped behind bars and clawing at the PCs. If you're going through you're traveling in a shallow hulled boat in a swamp, they could be reaching up from the water and possibly pulling you down into a watery surface, which is pretty dangerous. Yep, Cameron says the army of zombies that climbed the wall in World War Z. Yeah, just that image of those fast zombies like scrambling over top of each other. Jarl DM says, like, if you set them on fire, do they stop? Hell no. Um, who Heck, you could even claim that yeah, you can chop a skeleton or zombie in half, but do their limbs or does their upper body still claw at the PCs? Maybe they do, right? And sure, you might say, well, they're not really combat effective. No, but how many PCs can carry six undead limbs dangling and torsos dangling from their body with their skulls, teeth like gnashing at the PC before they are, what would you say? Let's open up the encumbrance rules until you get those undead limbs and body parts off of you while you're trying to run through the accursed desert or the jungle or the swamp or whatever, right? So that's lots of things. Also, maybe setting those undead on fire was, not only are they flaming undead now, but maybe they start setting other things on fire. So you may have made that worse. And the rest of the world still works. There's mud and rain and earthquakes and mudslides and blizzards and frozen lakes, and there's all the other types of natural environment that are still around. Don't don't think that the rest of the world stops just because you added undead into it. Maybe the undead are on catwalks or balconies that are going to crumble, or they're trying to climb up stairs that are half destroyed, or they are packing. Can you imagine the PCs running around like a dungeon, and it gets to the point where every time they run somewhere, there's so much undead that they're packing the hallways till they end up trapping themselves in a room where all the undead are packing the hallways so deeply that they can't slip through them. I mean, how bad is that? The PCs are like, we're going to sneak into the sewer system. Great, we're going to go down in the sewer and trudge through waist deep muck and effluvia, and then all of a sudden someone's like, "Who's tapping my foot? Is that the halfling?" The halfling's like, "Hell no! Those are undead bodies reaching for your ankles there and get pulled down under the water and whatnot." And the cleric is like, "I'm going to use a spell to save them," and you're like, "You can't see them down in the swampy waters or down in the waist deep sludge or something. All you see is Dookie floating on the surface, right? Dookie." Anyway, Gaster says, "Oh, how we've fallen. The god of death has asked the god of fire and metal to craft him a special goblet." Yeah, you are absolutely like, "Oh man, I got to get this the hell out of me." um, but you're all right, man. Now, um, other aspects of the environment, like for example, in the World War Z novel, um, cold weather would slow down the undead, and you have to make a choice for yourself. Like, can the undead shamble across ice, or do they slip and fall? What can they trudge through mud, or do they eventually start to slow down? How effective are they? Like, are they smart enough to open up doors, or do they just randomly start smashing up against a door to eventually have it, crush under the weight? Or if you lock a gate with a simple bolt, does that prevent the undead from going through, or are they smart enough to try to pull at the spike that you put into the gate? Can you trap the undead between two portcullises and then dump flaming oil on top of them, right? There's lots of that. Now, going towards the dark storms, good ideas to foreshadow this stuff. Maybe you have a list of like dark storm effects, like howling winds that can drive you insane, uh, dark necrotic lightning bolts that strike randomly from the sky and strike the ground, bringing the dead to life, or withering a limb if you get struck on the arm or something. Maybe there is um, blackened clouds that roll through the region, and even if you've killed and destroyed the undead, that the bones and body parts themselves will reanimate, forging together to make a bigger and far more dangerous monster. Heck, maybe even these dark storms cause those who are filled with vitality to have um, an unnatural glow to them that draws the undead towards them. Or maybe it's just silence. Maybe for some strange reason this dark gothic world just turns there's a preternatural strange silence that sweeps through a region where a silence spell descends upon the land for just a moment, but it's so bad that all you can hear is the beating of your own pulse and your own heart in your chest. But when you go to speak, when you go to say something, your allies can't see or hear. I mean, they cannot hear you say anything, and maybe verbalizing is impossible as as your very voice is pulled out of your throat. Or maybe it becomes so silent that you can literally hear a pin drop, and so even the most stealthy of the group finds it very difficult to sneak, because when you step on a broken branch, it feels like stepping on that branch echoes across the open fields or something. Like you could start writing down these random events and random details of this dark gothic world that affects things, right? And of course, the undead themselves can just be reskinned as an environmental effect as well. Hey, you're going across an open field. It used to be a battlefield. Okay. Like Cameron says, silence would prevent a lot of spell casting. We already have spell effects, monster effects, traps, layers. Take all that and use that in the environment. You know, if if the purple fog sweeps across the land and causes a silence effect that is like the size of a football field, um, both American football and what we call soccer. um, if it causes a silence effect, even if it's temporary, maybe the PC's got to rethink about what the hell they're doing, right? Maybe so. Maybe there's something out there. Um, Gaster just went off. Um, Maybe, just maybe, we have like, how do I say this? There are monsters that you reskin as environmental effects so that when other undead come along, it complicates everything. For example, um, a banshee screaming in the dark woods, right? The banshee itself, while dangerous, in and of itself can, what is it? A banshee scream can cause death. The banshee itself doesn't really see the PCs, but the banshee is just wandering around in the dark woods. Like it's in such pain that it doesn't see the PCs, but it's on the battlefield, just wandering around randomly. So now the PCs are like, okay, we're being attacked by zombies. There's a banshee in the woods. While I would love to move forward 30 feet and attack the zombies, the banshee right now is between me and the zombies, who she's just screaming her lungs out. I need to move around to the back behind the trees to get away from the zombies, simply because the zombies are going after me, and now the banshee's just wandering around randomly. Like, roll a d6 and make it a cardinal direction. Oh, zombie stumbles northwest. She uses her movement to go northwest, screaming. Roll a d6 again. Up, she starts to go southwestern now. She or whatever the case may be. Right? It could just be something on the battlefield, and maybe there's an open field and there's just nothing but skeletal hands reaching up out of the dirt because you've gone through. There's like old battlefield, and the remains of the combatants are there on the battlefield and whatnot. And maybe the event is, if your movement drops to 0, undead come out of the ground because they sense your vitality and they come out the ground. And you're like, okay, so if we run across the battlefield, maybe the undead won't come out. And you, as a DM, you're like, maybe you saw an NPC or a cow roam across the thing, and the undead came out of the ground, grabbing the cow by by its calves and hooves, and pulled it down into the dirt. And you're like, okay, so if we move slowly, we can sneak across, but if we run, we're going to make a lot of noise. Maybe we don't want to do this. You put it in their hands. So I like doing that a lot. Apparently Gaster's going to run a role-playing session. I'd like to play a sorcerer there, Gaster. If you go into the Discord, you can see the intro. It is the preamble to the beginning of an adventure, and I love it so much. The vampires have finally won. Humans are now treated as either concubines, cattle, or test subjects. The sun now refuses to shine upon these dark cities that have called the land they inhabit as home. Yeah, like Gaster's like, so Scribe says, we can either go through the dark storms, go through the taking taking Willow Forest, or we could just fight our way through. The Paladin's like, are you sure there's no way? Barbarian's like, Strog want blood. He books it in a battle wielding a rock or a stick. He's like, Paladin's like, God damn it, Strog. Exactly, right? Like, you could, if you do this enough, your PCs, your players, I'm sorry, will learn from it. But at a certain point, just because it's an atrophied muscle in the role-playing space, giving the players options to do a thing might be the best bet, right? So an example would be crossing a narrow, let's say there's a gorge filled with undead, and the PCs are like, how are we going to get across it? Strog the barbarian, like, Strog knock down tree, cross tree, get over ridge, and ravine or something. And they're like, oh, cool. So we have to knock the tree down, and then we're going to balance our way across the tree, right? To make that a thing. There you go with heights. And if you fall down, the undead reaching up at you, fingers barely caressing someone's cloak as they balance their way across the fallen tree. You got to have the typical tree begins to break and crack in the middle. PC with must make dex save to or acrobatics check or athletics check or something to leap and grab onto the other side of the ravine with their hands hanging by their fingertips and their allies pulling them up or something. Like, you got to have something like that. But there are I'll say, I'm not really a person whose cup is half empty, but I will say that one of the problems I find with layers and layer actions is that they seem to be tied to a particular type of creature. Now, of course, like dragons, liches, powerful creatures, beholders, and all that kind of business, of course they're going to have a lair. It makes perfect sense that they're going to live in a place that is intrinsically tied to their aspects and their power, right? But I feel like not only have layers not gone far enough, but I always wondered why they didn't separate the layer from the monster. Like, why not just have a list of layers that creatures live in? And then if you extrapolate from that, which is why I've been writing the cinematic environs, it's like, well, everything that is out in the wild is in its own layer. Like, for example, that purple mist that flows around the cemetery or the battlefield might be giving, let's say, is rejuvenating the undead. Like, maybe they're more healing like trolls. So if the undead hang on the battlefield, all they do is just keep getting. You can crack skulls, but what happens is all the bone fragments, come back together. You slice open a zombie, and their internal organs spill out on the ground, but they're still zombies, right? And so maybe the idea is, like, the location that the monsters or the undead are at is the thing that makes them more powerful than they would be if you, say, led them on a wild goose chase. Or you find out that, you know what, if we lead the undead down into the narrow valley, two of the PCs can be up on opposite sides of the ridge, cause a landslide, and trap the undead down in there and crush them with rocks. Or there is lava pouring down from the volcano. If we run past the lava, the undead will walk into the lava. It's what happens in urban settings, right? There's a train coming. Hey, let's run across the train tracks and jump in front of the train, so the train separates us from whoever's chasing us. It's that kind of thing. Jarl DM says, it always baffles me how anyone manages to find a lich, unless a lich explicitly wants to be found. Ancient super genius spellcaster is not getting surprised in my world. You know what? I don't know if we could do a week of this, but I remember reading a thread about, and I think Caius of Glantry even started this thread, but it was about a lich that took out. Yeah, he does have a lot to say about liches. I think it was a lich took out a cleric so the cleric couldn't bring back one of the other player characters, and then zap the player character to take them out. And a player was pissed off that how would a lich know that a cleric would have the ability to heal another player character, right? Like, because it's kind of meta, right? But I take exception to that. I think like ancient dragons, demigods, ancient fiends, and celestials, liches. You know what? They get to break the rules, right? They've been around long enough to know that if they even smell somebody that has any hint of like faith and attachment to them, they're going to take you down, right? You can't tell me that they don't know what a cleric can do or whatever. So yeah, like you're also says, yeah, liches are smarter than any of us. A 20 plus intelligence is a genius level intellect, and it's not just intellect; it's experience, right? We as humans measure our experiences by our own lifetimes. 30 years, 50 years, 80 years of experience. Take, a human being can live 100 years. Take 100 years, take all that experience with a genius and multiply that by 5, 10, 20. I think a lich knows how the rules work. They know what a bonus action is at this point, right? They know, if I drop them to 0, the cleric's going to heal them and bring them back up. Bam! Straight to the dome there, cleric, right? So I'm with you on that. Now, not only would a powerful lich be in its own territory, but why wouldn't let's travel down the lich, the winding path of the lich. Why wouldn't the lich even manipulate its own landscape to create a situation that protects itself from invading hordes of PCs, right? Like, of course they would have a situation where their undead legions and their lieutenants would be protected, healed, have the ability to spot dangers, cover. Why wouldn't they be surrounded by the very things that would make them that much more kick-ass, right? A good example would be what wraiths and wights, when they kill an enemy, when a person drops to 0 hit points, they rise again as one of their own. Why wouldn't they have giant cages filled with their own loyal undead servants right there just for them, for the sole purpose of trapping the PCs into a tight space with no place to run, and then sniping them with their bow and arrow or whatever, and then when the dead bodies come out of the PCs, they reanimate them. Like, why wouldn't they set up a situation that puts the PCs in the worst scenario. And again, here we go with exploration. So the PCs might need to explore the region, and they go, you know what? If we go down into that narrow valley, there's no way we're getting out of there. They're going to trap us on both ends, come at us from above. We're going to be surrounded. So maybe we need to use stealth or sneak in or take the long way around or find an ally or lead the enemy astray or something like that. Wait, hey, the druid says in 3 days hence there's going to be a major blizzard. Maybe we can go under the cover of a blizzard and storm the Lich's Keep that way or something. Cameron says, who in the world of Faerun wouldn't assume that one yelling names of gods and shooting light out of their fingers is a healer? Everyone knows about healers, even if they don't have access to them. Yeah. Yes. In our own world, when someone crosses their chest or uses the words of divinity in their own language, may the gods have bless us, or may the great one look upon you favorably. Of course the lich is like, I'm going to scry who they are. Wow, that person is literally carrying a holy symbol around their neck. I wonder what they are, what they're going to do. Like Y'all DM says, yeah, beyond that, a lich would have 50 contingency plans to escape. Portals, clones, pocket dimensions, self-destructing layers. Yep. Yeah, I don't get that. Now we can go even further with some of these things. Like, for example, a lot of times, even if we don't, well, first of all, kind of effed up, but trying to kill a lich is probably near impossible, because the lich is like, I'm not fighting to the death. I'm the hell out of here. But even their lieutenants are going to find places to go that are specifically designed or found to protect them from every other place, right? Like, undead probably aren't very affected by disease or parasites, but why wouldn't they be in a disease and parasite infested location? You know, I didn't even read what you said there, Cameron. But it's. I guess my even simple things like murder holes or spiked pits or flaming oil and all these kind of things. Like, a lot of very intelligent creatures would establish locations and surrounding areas that defend them very well. The idea of like a large no man's land with a lot of spikes, and then there's undead creatures attached to chains on spikes, and the PCs want to sneak through the area, but the undead creatures are scrambling for the PCs, but they're literally spiked down, so they only have like a 20-foot reach before they get to the end of the chain, like a dog on a chain or something. Gaster's like, sorry, I'm back with a small snack. Are you not going to share? um, A. Martin says, hey, why they should have air in their lairs, right? A vacuum tower full of undead and golems sounds like a secure place. A vacuum tower, yeah, they don't need to breathe. Full of like poison gases and stuff. Yeah, why not? Or someone's like, I'm going to specifically infest my undead with like diseases, parasites, insect, uh, insect infestations or something. Hey, I'm gonna drape around their necks bottles of oil, so all I have to do is shatter the oil and light them on fire. That makes them even more dangerous or something. Or if you want to go even more arcane, each one has a glyph of warding on their chest. Right? Yeah, DM says, if you don't need to breathe, have a noxious gas be present in your chambers at all times. Hells yes. Heck, there are noxious fumes that are both noxious to breathe and flammable, like natural gas, right? So you breathe in the natural gas, you start to pass out, undead goes after you, and then the the white takes an arrow, lights it on fire, and like shoot, boom, right? Nasty. Cameron says, laugh out loud. A rabbi is unmistakable. Why wouldn't a cleric of Mystara be, right? Too many mistakes had to rewrite. Oh no, you're fine. Yeah, but right. Oh, I don't know. Would it be the curled locks on the side of the face and the I don't know how to the description. The knotted. Damn it, I'm offending the Jewish community, but I think you know what I'm talking about, right? Or yeah, great minds think alike. Hell's yes, propane lich. Hell yeah, but you know what I mean. Look, I understand that what we're talking about really right now is like kicking PC's asses, but when the paladin gets ready to go, like step up front, like I can take care of these undead, no big deal, and you're like, dude, go ahead and make a con check. Like, why? Because there's like poison gas. You're like, you mean, what's it smell like? Well, it smells like almonds. Hey, I've smelled that almond smell before when another PC that passed away was I don't know, some kind of artificer or something, or herbalist or apothecary or something. Like, you mean that's flammable gas? It sure is. Holy but why not? Why not shift things around? Hell, you could even have giant poles with undead hanging with spike, like literally hooks hanging through the chests of undead up on these tall poles that are surrounding a region. And when the PCs come through, all the enemy has to do is pull a spike on the chains. The chains drop. The PCs drop down to the ground, and now the PCs who are walking through the foggy region are like, I hear something above us, but I don't know what it is. And all of a sudden, the undead start like literally falling from the sky when the door opens up and just starts dumping the undead onto the battleground or something like that. Gaster's like, now I'm just thinking about Hank Hill as a lich. Yeah, but anyway, I just feel like whether we're using arcane things, like for example, in our dark gothic world we built yesterday, it's possible that there are other things hanging around the world, irregardless of a lich and their undead armies. Like, oh, I don't know, thin undead king of the hill. Yep. Open up blood. Just sitting there, hanging out with their friends. Anyway, there could be like I don't know, thinning membranes between our world and the spirit world. You could literally, like I talked about undead on chains, right? There could be undead monsters that are not mobile, but they are environmental effects, right? Instead of pools of murky water, maybe there's pools of gibbering mouthers or oozes that are just, it's the leftover sludge of so much undead creatures and their internal organs that it's just become its own thing in the landscape or something. Maybe there are piles of dead bodies and bones that are dangerous to navigate around, or there are various states of death and undeath about many creatures. Like, oh, I don't know, an owlbear that had its guts ripped open and now it's just clawing its way to escape. But attached to the owlbear are like 6 or 7 zombies trying to rip its flesh apart. And the PCs get there and they're like, okay, so the undead are killing the owlbear, right? Yeah, they sure are. All right, maybe we need to be quiet, shh, because the undead are trying to get its meal. But then the undead see you and they start running towards you. But then the undead tackle you to the ground, and the owlbear is mad with pain and rage. And anybody that gets near the owlbear, it'll just start to try to kill them because it's on its last deathbed or something like that. Gaster's like, Bobby, I know I can command all the propane. I can now command all the propane products and propane accessories. Bobby? I can't do the accent right, but yeah. Propane? Propane? What do you mean, propane? Anyway, sorry, just I didn't mean to go there. The environment itself, I feel, is something that's too often not used and abused, so I love it. I animate propane and propane accessories. Are you guys talking about like propane golems? I don't know about propane golems. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Everybody have a great one. Tomorrow is Future Friday. Of course, we talk about science fiction and futurism and transhumanism. And yes, we are still going to be talking about the undead, or rather maybe unlife or proto-life or something of that nature. Yeah, so anyway, thank you very much. And as I spoke in the Discord, I received very good news yesterday, and I'm very thankful that someone in the industry reached out to me. I can't really give you too many details, but I was very appreciative of this individual who reached out to me. So even if nothing comes of it, it just gives me great hope and stuff. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that this will be a great project going forward. By the way, before we get out of here, at Con Online, Absolute Tabletop is hosting its online convention. Please stop by, and myself and the Jarl DM Lloyd will be there. Both of us will be hosting, talking about really what we were talking about today. So guys, everybody have a great one. I'll see you later. Bye.